Hello everyone, I'm Trevor Swart. Thank you for inviting me to speak at AUX Copenhagen 2020 during this very difficult time. I'm suffering from a little bit of lack of sleep and razor blades. But it's at times like these that I think good design, simplifying information, and using technology can have a great impact, especially when it comes to complex problems and motivating people to take action. And I'm here today to tell you the story about the Cape Town water crisis and a small studio that took on a personal project to try and build awareness of the problem and motivate households to save water. I'm just going to share my screen quickly and get this presentation going. Here we go. So in 2017, 2018, Cape Town was close to becoming the first major city in the world to run out of water, and that was a major problem. There's 4 million people, over 4 million people that live in Cape Town. And so my story starts in about May 2017, when the city was starting to enforce high water restrictions. Some people were aware of the problem, but we weren't really sure what to do about it. And our studio noticed that access to information and the guidelines were not readily available. Information was stuck inside PDFs, and they weren't easy to find. Plus, the number of litres an individual was supposed to use per day wasn't clear. Dam levels were sitting at about 30%. And the city of Cape Town was using about 700 million to 800 million litres of water per day. Fast forward to February 2018, and water restrictions were on 50 litres per person per day. By then, everyone had become very familiar with the guidelines. The city was referring to the water restrictions as Level 6B, which was a nice user-friendly naming convention for us citizens. But by the end of 2017 and the start of 2018, they were pushing one message very clearly, and that was day zero. This would be when some of the major dams supplying Cape Town would reach 13%, and at that point, water could no longer be extracted from our major dams. On day zero, the taps would run dry, and on that day, people would be rationed 25 litres of water per person, which would be dispensed at about 200 different water centres around the city. And there were just over 4 million people in the city, as I said, so that was quite a big problem. At one point, our city premier said that it would be bigger than World War II or 9/11. As we know, this is something that politicians are prone to doing, making inflated statements. And I'm sure that statement would offend many people. But the reason why I mention it is because it's the type of things that people say to get your attention, even if it is misguided. And so now I wanted to give you a little bit more context and to give you some background as to why this was happening, and also a picture of South African society, because I think it's important. This is the rainfall over time from 2013 to 2019. That's a map of South Africa, and Cape Town is in the bottom left-hand corner where the red circle is. And as you can see, the rainfall in the Western Cape had been declining year on year. The major dams, the two major dams, were wide and shallow, and so lots of water was being lost due to evaporation. And the city's population had increased by 71% in 20 years. So basically, we had less water, and we were using more of it. This is another graph to show you the storage of the dams over time, and you can see that in 2015, it really started to decline. Our wet season is in the winter time, and that's the high point, and the troughs are the summer times when we're using more water. 2017, where that red circle is at the bottom there, is about when we started noticing what the problem was, and that our dams were at about 30%. The issue was that we were also going into the rainy season, so how could we get people, or how could the city even get people to really take notice of the problem? And it's worth mentioning that there is widespread inequality in South Africa due to our apartheid history. This image is by John Miller, who visualized this inequality with a drone. The disparity is clearly evident in the cities. And these images are actually not from Cape Town, they're from Johannesburg, but I'm using them to get my point across about infrastructure. Poorer communities do not have the same infrastructure to access water in the same way that affluent suburbs do. In poorer communities, people were already carrying water to their homes in 25-litre containers and taking bucket baths. Many of those households do not have washing machines, pools, or gardens. And so at some point in late 2017, this graph was published. Houses, people with gardens and pools, and various other amenities were by far the biggest users of water. And these people were in the suburbs. And so it was a lack of engagement and accountability by the residential users to hit their water usage target that was a big part of the problem. And so then at some point, something really simple happened and gave us this idea. Roy, our technical director, came into work and told us a story. He'd been talking to a local store owner about the water crisis. And while they were talking, Roy mentioned that he was only using about 10 kilolitres of water per month. And I'm told the store owner's face dropped. He could not understand how this was possible. And the hardware store owner lived in a similar area and had fewer people in their home. And he was using about triple that amount. And so anyway, Roy was telling us the story, and he said, what if we could make a sign and stick that on our gates? And it would tell people how much we were using and what we were doing about the problem, because it was an opportunity to inspire or be proud of the effort that you were making. People like to compare too. So we realized that this was the start of something, and that was the start of TapOff. We produced a number of design directions exploring key numbers that we could get our hands on, like dam levels and daily water usage. And we mixed in illustrations and designed characters that would appear as avatars or water-using personas, depending on how much you were using and if you were over or under the guidelines. We imagined having messages like, "You're saving buckets," top left, or "You're just a sponge." This is the sprinkler monster for people that were still using their sprinklers and watering their gardens, designed by Johan. And these are some of the quick throwdown artboards that we used during our